didn't even know what the hell it was. I thought it was a sink, to be honest. You know, you just look at it, it's like, well, it's not a toilet, but it looks like a toilet. So what do I do with it? Hello there.
Hi.
And welcome to our channel. This is Alice.
And this is Kai.
And today we're going to be taking a look at usual things in the US that confuse non-Americans.
AKA us.
I'm ready to be confused, I guess.
Shall we be confused together?
Let's.
Okay.
In some ways, the United States is a whole different world, totally different from every other place. So let's take a look at what's normal there that baffles people from the outside. One of the first things a foreigner notices when entering the country is flags. American flags everywhere. On buildings like schools and houses, and on clothes like shorts, t-shirts, you name it. Throughout history, Americans have changed 27 flags. The current American flag was only adopted in 1960 and is so far the longest-lasting flag of the country. It wasn't created by the authorities, though.
Yeah.
In 1958, there was a contest for a design of the new American flag, and the winning flag was made by a 17-year-old high school student from Ohio. The reason why Americans love their flag so much is national pride. But why not so many countries do the same? Well, some countries avoid displaying them for historical reasons. Other countries only raise the flag on special occasions to highlight the importance of the event. Still, some countries display their flag as often as Americans do. In Denmark,
I don't know what our child's doing upstairs.
I
but
can
she's
hear
going
our
absolutely
daughter
ballistic.
going ballistic and laughing, so it just made me fun. Sorry.
people are quite proud of their flag too. They decorate the winter holiday tree and birthday cakes with them. And you can always find stickers with Danish flags, red and white candles, and other goodies with the flag in a grocery store. People in Sweden are also very much into their flag and have flagpoles everywhere. Now, let's go to a restaurant, shall we? Many things that...
Oh, this is going to be tipping, isn't it?
Oh, probably.
Or maybe the service charge slash...
Maybe. I don't know. Let's have a look.
are very specific to the States. Like, for example,
wrong.
tons of ice in every drink. Turns out there is some history to this preference. America has always had a lot of ice as a resource, since New England's lakes and rivers have a lot of those during winter. Centuries ago, before refrigerators and other helpful cooling machines, that kind of cold resource was very valuable, and the States started exporting ice to other parts of the world. And also, of course, consuming it themselves. They started to put ice in their hot drinks, in contrast to the British, who were always drinking their beverages hot. The ice in the drinks has become an American thing, and it was also considered a rich person's drink. Yep, the ice would also show a person's status. Of course, with time, when refrigerators appeared, ice became available to everyone, and Americans started to add it to their drinks commonly. The habit remained, but also, ice drinks are very refreshing, which is especially important in the hot south of the country.
In all fairness, a cold drink is much better than a warm drink. Like, sorry, no.
Not a warm drink.
Not a hot drink, but a warm drink. So
a room temperature drink.
Yes,
that's
I
meant
guess.
to be cool. You would want it cold.
Like, yeah, I mean, if you've got a can of soda, right, and it's been in the cupboard versus been in the fridge,
Yeah.
which one's better? It's the fridge, always, isn't it? So, I get it.
Country. But if you come from abroad and don't want your drink freezing cold, always specify it to the waiter. The next striking thing is the huge portions that are served, and there is a reason for that too. It wasn't always like this, but in the second half of the last century, due to pesticides and fertilizers, farmers started to be able to grow more food than they used to. The government caught on, subsidizing them to grow even more food. So the amount of available food increased. Over time, companies started to increase the sizes of their portions. Why serve less food and get less money if you can serve a bit more and also charge more? That's good for business, and it's a...
I'm all for bigger portions, to be honest. I love food, and when you go to a restaurant and they just give you a tiny little plate of food, it's disappointing, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather have a lot of nice food than a little bit. But I can understand from a waste perspective, but no.
And
Lots of
also, with bigger portions, if you're used to eating a bit more than, let's say, what you need or what your body needs, your body gets used to it. You slowly start eating more than you need to every single day.
Yeah,
so
it can
obviously
escalate.
that doesn't help.
Bit of a snowball effect.
Yeah, but
it's a good snowball though. Well, maybe not always, but in moderation. That's what we're going to stick with. Moderation is key.
Win-win. Customers get more food for just a little bit more money. So, larger portions stuck. Okay, now we need to take a little toilet break. And, surprisingly, there are a lot of foreigners who find American toilets weird.
Yes.
First, what's up with those huge gaps in bathroom stalls? Let's start with the more obvious part, gaps on the bottom of the doors. Those are quite common, even outside the US, and they serve several purposes. First, you can see if there's a person inside without trying to break into an occupied stall. Second, it provides some ventilation and makes it easier to clean the floor in the bathrooms. The gaps on the sides are more questionable. Of course, people on the outside can't see everything going on behind the door, but still, there's not much privacy whatsoever. In most other countries, the gaps are either negligible or non-existent. So what's up with them in America? I did some research. Some sources say that since every inch of material is expensive, wide gaps are made to reduce the costs of bathroom stalls. Other sources say that when people feel exposed like this, they have fewer incentives to do something illegal in public bathrooms. Next observation.
I don't know. That feels a bit rubbish, isn't it? Especially the material one. Like, US can afford to add an extra inch of material for
I don't
privacy.
think realistically companies are probably just bagging the profit in that respect. I don't think they're gonna make the product cheaper because there's less of it. I feel like they're gonna sell the same product, it's just slightly smaller.
Yeah.
So I don't see that being the actual
I don't know
reason.
why it's that way.
It could also be that it started out like that. So maybe going back to when money did matter a bit more and things were a bit more hard going, maybe that kind of concept where less material meant cheaper, maybe that was a thing. But I feel like that's not so much a thing. Maybe that's how it originated, and then it's been a bit of a tradition, or it's just the way things are, you know. Who knows? Let us know in the comments if you guys know why you have the. Well, to be honest, the gaps at the bottom aren't too bad. We can live with them.
Yes.
But it's the gaps down the side of the doors.
Yeah, where you walk past to go to a certain toilet, and you literally could make eye contact with someone sitting on the toilet. That's a bit rubbish, isn't it?
Especially if they're really going for it, like. Like it's just that awkward moment,
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a.
It is.
Yeah.
Observation: American toilets have way more water in their bowls in comparison to, for example, European ones. The reason is that those types of toilets use different flashing systems, and an American one needs more water to flush effectively. In many countries,
That's not a terrible thing though, because let's be honest, no skid marks.
Well, you can still have them.
If there's a lot more water, it's bracing the impact, isn't it? let's not go into the details of this. Actually, let's move on.
You don't want to
especially in
open the
Asia,
gate.
most bathrooms have bidets, which are used for after toilet cleaning, and tourists don't understand why Americans wouldn't adopt those too.
To be honest, I would never use a public bidet.
Oh hell no,
That's not.
I remember a long time ago, back in I don't know, the 90s. My dad had a house and it had a bidet, and I never used it. I didn't even know what the hell it was. I thought it was a sink, to be honest. You just look at it. It's like, well, it's not a toilet, but it looks like a toilet. So what do I do with it? It's got a tap on it. It's kind of gross though when you think about it, isn't it? Like, let's just not go
After all, if you step in mud, you'll go and wash your foot instead of just wiping it off with a tissue. The same logic works here. Also, it reduces toilet paper usage. So it's more sustainable and it's environmentally friendly. Some say there's a strong stigma in America around bidets that is extremely hard to overcome. Others say that toilets in the US don't have enough room to install a bidet. So they don't have those, especially if there are other well-known ways.
I don't think that's a reason, purely because generally when we've seen or looked at US houses, the floor print is
Massive.
bigger. You have much more space. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a factor. I feel like if you wanted it there, you could. Personally, I'm not a fan of bidets. I don't see why you would have one. You know,
What's the stigma though? What could that be? Like, why is that
I suppose it's just a weird concept, isn't it? That you're gonna go to a toilet, then basically wash yourself after.
Yeah, but if you I know someone, for example, that every time they go to the toilet, they have to have a shower. They don't feel clean unless they wash themselves.
Really?
This would be an alternative.
This is for off the camera because I need to know who this person is now. I'm really curious. Interesting. Okay, let's carry on.
Before we leave the restaurant, we need to tip the waiter. Tipping in the United States is way more common than in most other countries. You're expected to tip any service person who helped you with something. While some kind of tipping exists in some other countries, the extent of it is smaller. And there are also countries like Japan and Denmark where tipping isn't a thing at all. Those countries have minimum wage laws that dictate decent wages employers must pay their workers. This way, the need to pay money to service stuff isn't pushed onto the customers. By the way, here's one more fact about the prices. Probably the craziest thing in the States tourists have to adapt to are prices in stores. The tax isn't included into the displayed price and is added on top while checking out. So people who are short on money can't pre-calculate the price they will have to pay to make sure that they have enough money. But really,
I wouldn't say necessarily deceiving. It's just like it's not very convenient, especially if you are struggling a little bit. You only have $20, and you go to the market to buy food for the day, for the week. You can't, because
well, I guess you've got to think about it.
You have to know exactly how much tax is where you live,
well, it's based on the state,
and calculate it every time you add a product to your basket.
Yeah, true. I mean, I
don't understand why they don't.
We have cash and carries. So in some of our cash and carries, they have the price without VAT.
Those places businesses go and buy from, and businesses can claim that back, so that's completely separate.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But not in like retail spaces.
And I suppose I'm kind of with you there. If you're in a state, at the end of the day, that state has a tax.
Yeah.
So why not just have the full price, including that tax, displayed on the label, so you know exactly, right, okay, that's what I've got to pay.
Yeah, that's
you haven't
what
got
I
to think
afford.
about it. You don't need to be a mathematician to go and buy your groceries.
Out. Yeah, I don't get why they don't do it to help their people.
Maybe we've started something here, guys. If you own a shop, you know what to do. All right?
Protest. Just
make it happen. Add the price and a tax to your labels.
No, I was talking to the general public. They need to revolt. They need to protest and get their tax added to their prices.
If I heard it here first, I guess.
We ride at dawn.
We ride at dawn.
Why is it so? The main reason behind such a weird policy is transparency. This way, taxpayers know how much tax they pay. Is transparency. Is it so?
Go back one.
The main reason behind such a weird policy is transparency. This way, taxpayers know how much tax they pay and can resist raising the tax rate in case it comes on the national agenda.
Because that's on the bill already.
Well, you would know, like indirectly, you know what the state tax is going to be, right?
It's also on the receipt. This is your total that you paid, out of which this much was tax.
Yeah, you're going to see how much you pay in tax. And not only that, if you live in that state...
transparency right there.
Well, if you live in that state, you know what the tax is. And even if it's a variable tax that changes every once in a while, you're still going to know when it changes. So one way or the other, you're still paying the same tax.
Yeah, and even if you're traveling, you don't know what the tax is. You get it on your receipt.
Yeah.
So that's rubbish.
Also, it allows buyers to compare the costs of products across states fairly, since tax rates may differ. So, if the tax isn't...
So you would travel across state line to buy something because of tax?
I suppose if you're buying in bulk or buying something quite significant, it could make a difference. But, I mean, you can still...
You still can know what tax is.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're going across the border...
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
I think what they're saying, though, is that the product itself, so say, like, I don't know, something is $20 in this state, right? And then you go over to that shop in that state and it's $18. So what they're saying is you can clearly see the price difference without the tax interfering. I think that's the concept. But then you have the added layer of, well, the tax is different in that state to make up for that. That makes them both the same, maybe. Let us know if that is a thing, guys. Do you travel across state to buy things, maybe to get a slightly better rate, or yeah, just let us know. Really, it's interesting.
Included, you compare the actual bread costs between Alabama and Alaska, for example. In some places in America, it's not very easy to get around unless you travel by car. In some regions, there's often no sidewalk taking you to the closest convenience store or a crosswalk, allowing you to cross the road right in front of the store. The main reason for that is probably the fact that the United States is a big country with vast lands and everything is spread out. Neighborhoods can be scattered around, wide suburban territories quite far away from one another. So that's already far from being walking distance, and sidewalks aren't needed because, yes, no one's walking. Studies show that Spanish or Germans walk at least twice as much as Americans, but in those countries, everything is way closer. And last and not least, you guessed it, the Imperial system. It's based on the human body. A foot is an average foot size of a person, so you might think it's quite intuitive for anyone. Well, no. Foreigners are incredibly confused with feet, inches, gallons, and Fahrenheits, and tend to convert it all to the familiar metric.
I was going to stop.
Okay, so Fahrenheit, I agree. Well, you're not backwards, you just do it differently. But I struggle with Fahrenheit because I have no idea at all. Like we're Celsius, and I have no idea the conversion rate. The thing that really gets me in Fahrenheit is 0 for us, freezing point is 0, whereas for you guys it's like -30 or something like that. And that just is like, you know, I can't get my head around that. It's just weird. I think feet, and so obviously you've got feet, centimeters, millimeters, and inches, and all these different variable measurements. Personally, I have used all of them, and because I worked as a plumber and heating, well, I do work as a plumber and heating engineer, and at the end of the day, for me, the nearest measurement works. So whatever's closest, I'm going to use that measurement because it's just easier from memory. And if you're trying to, you know, measure something, you want to be precise, it works.
Well, I think in terms of being confusing, England kind of takes the cake with some things because we use the metric system officially. However, we do measure distance in miles, and speedometers are in miles.
Yeah,
there's a lot of like gallon. We don't have gallons, do we?
Liters into gallons.
We have liters, pints. That's another measurement for drinks and all of that, which is just over 500 and something milliliters.
So yeah, something like that.
So it's very confusing. I think
you've got USA, right? And then you've got the UK, and then you've got Europe, right?
Yeah.
And it's like USA and Europe met in the middle and then just left everything behind here. So we kind of we've got all of the numbers.
We use a bit of this system for that thing, a bit of this system for that thing, but officially we're under the metric system.
We are, but we still
use some
Imperial
other type
is very
of
prominent
measurements.
still,
Yeah,
I'd say.
we still use feet as well for certain things.
Yes.
It's just
whatever
weird.
Measurement works, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it depends on your foot size. It might not be very accurate.
That's what I mean when they talk about the average foot size.
Well, it's
what
not your
is
feet
that?
because your feet are tiny, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going by my feet.
Average, and you know, women my age maybe, or you know, background or height or whatever, have a certain average, whereas you giant feet, it's a different average.
Well, no, so
for men, your height and
Well, because we obviously float that border between imperial and metric, I'm always under the impression that a meter is 3 foot. Yeah, so that gives you an indication.
Maybe 3 of your feet, maybe about 5 of mine.
No, it's not my fault you got small. Just get over it. Anyway, I think that I it doesn't faze me too much at all. I don't mind. I've been brought up with both as well. Like especially when I was buying some fittings for plumbing as well. A lot of them are measured, especially with iron and stuff. It's still measured in imperial measurements, so it's like 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, things like that. Whereas other things like the pipe size are measured in metric,
centimeters,
and millimeters and whatnot. So it's kind of weird, but we do definitely incorporate both.
Mingle.
Yes, we're weird.
So talking about confusing, UK takes the cake.
Yeah.
America has it down the wrong way with the imperial system, but
it's
England
just
what's
the old,
confusing.
well, I guess it's old versus new, isn't it? Imperial's the older way, metric is the newer way. That's what it is.
Is it?
I think so. Let us know in the comments if you know what the difference between imperial and metric is, and is there an old?
Okay, which one came first?
That's the better question.
Well, in this sense, the British are
here we
even
go.
more confusing. Those guys use both
There you go.
imperial and metric systems. For height, it's mostly feet and inches, but for weight, kilograms. Great Britain used to have the imperial system, but later they were forced to switch to the metric system. So now they're using a combination. Whatever helps to be more precise.
Whatever helps to
That's
be
it
more
for today.
confusing.
So hey, if you pass a
There we go.
He just said literally
he summed
what
it
I
up in a
said.
nutshell, didn't he? Like he did it in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It took us about
We-
2-3 minutes. Okay, so there we go. We obviously
Oh, we
waffle
just
on a little bit.
babbled on.
So yeah, that was a
good
nice video. I mean, to be honest, I think we've seen some of these in other videos, so we kind of knew about most of them, I would say. Especially with the driving and stuff in America, we know that it's obviously very vast. So especially with the sidewalks, pavements, what's the point of having them if no one's going to walk there? At the end of the day, if it's 50 miles to the nearest shop, I don't think anyone's going to be walking.
Yes, the US was built for cars, wasn't it? And it's a massive place.
It's just huge.
It just kind of makes sense in a way. I guess it could be within communities. It could be a bit better for walking.
Yeah, I mean,
but
to be
at the same
fair,
time, I don't know.
well, what I'm thinking of is like, so in the UK, well, I say in England because I don't know if this spans across the entire UK, but when they make like a new housing estate, for example, which is quite vast, probably a couple of hundred houses maybe, they normally incorporate like, it will have some facilities in there, wouldn't it? Like, so not a hairdresser's a terrible example, but it have like a grocery store, it'll have some other, like maybe a doctor's,
Making
maybe
a
a
tiny
school.
little community with maybe a couple of shops and a pharmacy, or just a post office and a doctor's and a few shops and a
Yeah, so it
grocery
would have
stores.
like all of that within walking
within
distance.
it, yeah. So even though, yeah, you might not always need that little where you go around, but if you only need milk for the day, you can just walk to the corner shop and.
But I suppose on the other side of that, because everything is quite small and quite travelable, or reachable by car or walking and whatnot, you're going to get people crossing over from other areas. Oh, I prefer that shop, so I'm going to go to that one. Whereas I suppose in the States, because you're so big, you're not going to have like the local shop here and people coming from 2 states to come to this shop because
Unless you're Bucky's.
unless you're Bucky's, yeah, because that's impressive in itself. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not going to get the business to warrant having it. So that's probably why you have like one big one in a fairly centralized area that everyone just commutes to, maybe.
Maybe.
We're not sure. Let us know again in the comments. So if you made it this far, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye.